Hey everybody, my name's Dave Martone. I am going to be starting a whole new YouTube idea, and it's going to be called zone recording. That actually happened years and years ago from a webpage called Guitar 9 Records. Thanks, Dan. I used to write a column for probably 10 years on home recording techniques. So this is my home studio here. It's called Brainworks, and I'm going to do series on home recording. Could be any topic. So today's topic, we're going to be getting into how to record acoustic guitars for a client, maybe how to make a double, melody track, fix it up, record, overdub, punch in, get it ready to send off to the client. Right after this.
Zone recording.
So today's topic's going to be, I got a client who wanted some acoustic guitars laid down on a couple tracks. Actually, it was a full album. And I had recorded 5 of the tracks on the album with electric guitars. And they wanted me to come back and play acoustic guitars on the actual session. So today, summating, I want to be able to show you how to track acoustic guitars, set them up, mic them, maybe use a preamp or direct, track them, and send the delivered product off. All right, that's the goal. Let's get to it. Okay, so I'm opening up a Pro Tools session. As mentioned, the whole idea is we want to be able to track acoustic guitars to this. So this was the way that the Pro Tools session was delivered to me. And right off the top, there's a few things. If you're not using Pro Tools, that's totally fine. I'm going to just play it right off the top. So we got sound. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I just want to prep this up to get ready to do some guitars. So the first thing is I want to make sure that the wave files aren't as heavily compressed as that. So all we do is set the tracks back to our normal height that happens in Pro Tools. And that control is, that's Control, Option, Command, and the left bracket. So that sets them all to normal. Next thing I want to do is I like having a master fader in here. And so I'm going to add a master fader track in because that's how I like to roll. And I'm going to add a master fader. The other thing is I'm going to add a click track because I got to play along with the click to make sure everything's in time. So all of a sudden I have my master fader, I have a click track, I'll put that up at the top. The next thing is anytime I get a session from anybody, I want to make sure that the I/O is to my liking because when it comes in a Pro Tools session, it could be all over the place. So very simply, I'm going to go under Setup and I'm going to delete all of whoever's I/O they had. This is simple as going to the input, select all, delete, and then do the default, which is me. I'll do the same with all the outputs, select all, delete, and do the default, and then especially the buses, select all, delete, and do the default. So one of the things is I'm using UAD, which is kind of over there, and I like to route this to a couple virtual channels. I know you don't know what that means, but it just means basically I want the mix to come up on a fader. Okay, so now back in Pro Tools, I have to select all of the tracks, and I want them to all go to that output. And so now that should work. Sounds the same. I hear the click. Everything is good at this point in time. So now I want to, first I'm going to listen one more time, make sure everything's good. Notice the engineer prepped the session beautifully well. I have all of the arrangements, verse 1, verse 2, chorus. This is great. The engineer, I asked him to give me some stems, and look at what they did. So they gave me the full mix up on the top, and then they broke down drums, bass, guitars, vocals, and keyboards, etc., etc. So next thing is I want to get a couple tracks. So how are we going to do this? I don't even know what parts I'm going to play yet. That's the least of my worries. I want to be able to record the guitar, acoustic guitar, with a mic. I'm going to use a Neumann mic. It's called a TLM 103. And we're going to put that into a certain preamp. As well, I want to be able to use a direct out of the guitar to have both. I'll call it a DI, and I'm also going to have a mic. So all I got to do first off in Pro Tools is I'm going to start with 2 channels. And I'm going to do this. So I'm going to start off, both are going to be mono, and I'm going to label it guitar, DI, I'm going to call it left, and I'm going to go guitar, mic, I'm going to call it left. So that's the first bit. I'm also going to do a stereo, meaning a double track. So I'm going to do the same idea here. Guitar, DI, right, and a similar idea. I'm going to go guitar, DI, mic. Past that, if I want to do another whole pass of maybe a melodic idea on top, I'm going to set those up as well. So you could do this later, but I'd kind of just do it in advance. So now I'm going to go say maybe melody guitar, melody DI, and then I'm going to go melody mic, create. So this is going to create all of these tracks right here, which have just been labeled, and I like to make them the color green for guitar. So that's the first thing. After that, this is just kind of housekeeping, maintenance setup, and I'm going to put little groups of these things. So the left, I'm going to create a group in Pro Tools. I'm going to call this guitar left. So now when I do little adjustments, I can have the panning the same, the solo the same, etc. I'm going to do the same thing for guitar right, and I'm going to create a group for that, guitar right. And if you're not sure of these Pro Tools shortcuts, there's so many courses on Pro Tools and how to do this. To create a group, I just select both tracks and I hit Command G, and I'll call this melody. Oops, M-E-L, melody guitar. Can't even spell today. Yeah, okay. So now I have to select my inputs of what I'm going to use. So the DI for me is going into, I'll show you in a second, channel 1. And my microphone, which is going into a Drawmer 1962 preamp compressor, is going into channel 6. And so I'm going to just set the rest of those inputs up for all the other channels, and they'll be ready to go. Okay, making sure that's all good. Okay, I'm going to show you how we're going to be doing acoustic guitars next. And one of the most important things, since it's an acoustic guitar, I need to have headphones on. And something that I've noticed is, even though I have professional closed-back headphones, I still hear leakage in the headphones from the click. So I've been using these awesome in-ear, and they're quite awesome, basically no leakage at all. So I have these jammed in here, and I just have them plugged in through an extension cable so I can have extra space, which is great. So the guitar I'm using, let's turn over here. This is a Taylor. Now, first things first, I'm going to be using a Neumann, as I mentioned, TLM 103. And this is going right into a Drawmer 1960 preamp, which is right here. I'm using channel 2. It is requiring phantom power to run the microphone. Notice I have the capsule kind of aimed right around the 12th fret right here. So let's talk about the actual DI. So the DI is coming out of this cable right here, and I'm going directly into the front end of an Apollo. And now let's see what's happening with that. I'm going into UAD. So for the acoustic guitar direct, I'm using this Neve preamp right here. And I do have a low pass filter. I kind of set it not too much. This is set at about 60, just in case I want to change it later. And past that, I'm using an LA2A for a little compression when I hit it super hard. So this is our button for the low pass. I'll talk about this button in a second. It's very, very important. Now, let us go back to Pro Tools at this point in time. So that was the actual DI sound. Also, I like to record with no effects because I want to hear the sound as clean as possible. Now, I'm going to turn the DI off, and I'm going to go into the mic. I'm going to go back over here, and there we go. Mic is on. Let's put both on, back into Pro Tools, and I'm going to unmute both channels. And I'm going to open back up our UAD. So here is both channels now. I mentioned when you're having two sources, we need, back over here, to check the phase. What do I mean by check the phase? Well, when signals are put together with two microphones or two sources, especially one's a DI and one's a mic, there's a different time that when I hit a note, it hits the DI versus when the microphone captures it. So basically, I'm going to turn back over here. And what I like to do, I'll turn the phase just normal. I like to hit one note. And I like to see which way sounds the bassiest. So that sounds pretty crap. So I'm going to hit the phase, and now, hear that? That's the right way to set it. So this way, when I come down to do the parts now, my guitar is going to be great to track with. So let's go over the last couple things that we... let's refresh a couple things. So basically what we did was we opened the session. I just did some mild setups. I changed the I/O, refreshed everything, made some tracks, armed them for a DI, which is going through, once again, over here, a digital preamp and a little bit of a compressor. And then the microphone, as mentioned, was going from this Neumann TLM 103 into a Drawmer 1960, and I set the same thing up. So a little bit of compression on the way in. What that means is when I hit it really hard, maybe -2 or -3 of compression. And what I need to do is I got to learn the track. That's what I got to do. So as you can see, all of these are blank. Guitar left, guitar right, melody guitar. I might even do bass with this as well too. Remember as well, I use the in-ears here instead of the classic headphones to help with almost no leakage of click. Another last thing I'll leave you with is when I'm going to play the parts, I find I used to use really heavy picks, but when playing acoustic guitar, I'm going to use a pretty light pick. So I'll be back in a bit, and I'm going to just start to listen to this track. Okay, we're back, and I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to put a couple tracks in. We have the guitar plugged in. I have made sure that the EQs are all flat. Volume is max. We also have the mic set over here. And that's going, as I mentioned, into the Drawmer. This is going to the channel of the UAD. And what I have going on in Pro Tools, as mentioned, I've already done a bit of work here. So I have guitar lefts here. The top one is DI, second one is mic. Guitar right, DI and mic. And underneath we have a little melody part. So what I like to do is I kind of work on one of the tracks and then throw the bits up into the next track that I'm working on. That'll become more apparent as I play it. So first, let's just listen to what the part is I'm going to play. Here we go. So that sounds like A, of course. This is not getting the mic. Let's turn to the mic right here for a second. So I have that. That's the part I'm going to put in. So let's get this ready to go. That could be better, but what I do is I usually take that and I'll throw it up to the top. And let's try and put a double of that in. All right, here we go. Yeah, notice I hit that last note too hard. Boing. So when I hit it too hard, the string's going to go sharp. So I probably want to fix that. So I probably would, but just to hear what's going on, then I would just trim this again, throw it up to the top, and let's take a listen to what we had done right here. This is hearing both parts. And So what I would do, of course, when I start to stitch these things together, that's editing and a quick little piece of insight. Let's zoom in here. Notice there's the hit happening on the beat. I just pull this a little bit, and there's my downbeat. And you always want to do a crossfade, or else you're going to get clicks and pops, and clients will hate that. So now I could solo those, and now just hear those two guitars, and it will be a nice clean stitch. Now for that last little bit, here's something to learn about punching in. That last little chord, I didn't like the sound of it. It was just kind of weird, just crap. So I want to punch in that last E chord. So notice I kind of took them out, and I'm going to punch in just that E chord. So I was going. So when I hit that last E chord, I want to make sure I'm kind of playing the same idea. Or else if I just punch in, it's going to sound like I didn't play it as one take. That is a Martone trick right there. So I'm going to set this, and I'm going to just punch in that last bit. So a double track. Here I go, and I'm going to play along and then just take that bit. Okay, and now I'm just going to put this up to the top. And let's do the double. Perfect, and there is how I do the edit of the little punch in, throw it up top, and I would do the same crossfade idea here, and just pull it, crossfade it. For this one, I would pull it, crossfade it. I can move that fade around a little bit too, and take a listen to what that sounds like. Let's see. Here we go. Perfect. And then I would just trim the end up to get ready for the next part. I know that was kind of long, but you got some insight into how I put some bits in. After I'm done with this, I'll show you how I put these tracks into like buses and what I might do to have a little bit of plugins on them. Anyway, there you go. Be back in a bit. Okay, in that short period of time, I tracked 1, 2, 3 different takes of guitar parts. We had guitar left, guitar right, and a center guitar. I even threw in some bass and maybe a tambourine or something like that. So what I want to talk about now was how I'm going to prepare the session to send back to the engineer. So my whole thought process here is basically I'm going to go back to Pro Tools at this point in time, and what we have at this point is, as I can see, I have guitar left, which is going to be here. I have guitar right, which is here. I have my melody guitar, which is here. So basically my idea that I want to be able to do is, instead of having it all just like this, which I could send to the engineer, I like to kind of prep it a little bit. So my thought process is this. Here's our goal. Basically, I want to sum all of the rhythm guitars to a certain stereo bus, and then the actual melody guitar, I'm going to actually also send to an auxiliary bus and process it. So it was going to happen relatively quite quickly. So here are my 4 tracks that I have right here. So what I want to do is I want to send them all to a bus. So in Pro Tools, I'm going to create a new track, stereo, and it's going to be an auxiliary input track. And I'm going to call this guitar bus. And so that's here. I like to color my bus that color, which I think is yellow. I'm colorblind, so I can't tell. And what I need to do is actually assign this to a bus. So I'm going to pick 23 and 24, and I'm going to rename this guitar bus. Now, That's going to be sent to the main mix. At this point, I want to assign these 4 channels here to that bus. So in Pro Tools, when you hit Shift and Option, and you select your outputs, I'm going to select them all to that guitar bus. So now what's happened is all of these are going to be sent to this bus here. Check it out. So now you're going to see so now I can process that bus with whatever I want, all 4 of those parts. And remember, just refreshing, we had, so this is guitar left, the DI and the mic, and guitar right, the DI and the mic. I'm giving this to the engineer in case they want one or the other, and I'm just leaving them pretty much at the same exact level. So now I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to use some of my awesome Waves plugins. The first thing I like to put in is an SSS channel. And right here, the very first thing I want to do is I want to set a filter on it. And that's going to be this right here. So you can hear, if I pin it and take it all the way up, which I'm not going to. I like to set it, I'm going to set it around 100. I know when I put it in, I set it to around 60, but this is just, I like to set it about 100. Could be pushing 110, depends. After that, I love to use the Waves C4. And I've been using that forever. And this is like a multi-band kind of limiter compressor. And I'm going to use the preset Pop Vocal. I know, and this adds a little bit of sheen to the top, so I'm going to play it with it bypassed. Awesome. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just compress it a little bit more, and I'm going to use, again, another Waves plugin, and I'm going to probably use the where is it? The C3. Yeah, C3A. And this one, I'm going to use a preset again called Acoustic Guitar. One thing to watch for is the analog setting here. It adds basically some analog kind of hiss. I turn that shit off. And I'm going to watch, it's going to be hitting pretty hard. So for me, that's way too much compression. So I'm going to bring that down so it's maybe around -2 or -3. Okay, so that sounds pretty cool. The one thing I also want to do is gain stage. So sometimes these plugins, they add the gain, they pop it up a bit. So the best way to do that, I'm going to push play and then bypass it. I'm going to hear. So you hear it gets a lot louder when I put the plugin in. I don't want that to actually happen. I want it to just control the dynamic range. So I'm going to bring down the gain until it's the same. Now that's done. And I could do the exact same thing to the melody DI. At this point, everything is totally dry. So I would just do the same thing for that bus. So now, basically, I have everything set. If I wanted to add some effects, I could do that. A little bit of reverb, and I might make a whole new bus for that as well, too. So let's do that. I'm going to save. Always save your work. So I'm going to add just a little bit of a reverb. So this time I'm going to make another bus, stereo bus, auxiliary input. I'm going to just call it Rev. All right. So here we go. And I like to color that this color. And let's go to the mix screen here. So here we go. And let's make another bus for this. I like to put my effects on the top and my channel instruments below. So I'm going to use bus 1 and 2. And I'm going to rename this reverb. And now I also like to put a shelf on the reverb, a low pass shelf, or high pass, excuse me, about 100. And now I could use any reverb that I want. I could use something in Pro Tools, or I could use something in Waves. Let me just try something in Pro Tools, maybe a simple deverb, simple room sound. Good enough. And now I have that set up. See, I listen to the rhythm guitars, and I'm going to send now to that bus. So I'm going to send to reverb bus, and here's my send. Bring it up. There we go. A little bit. Gives a bit of space. Pretty cool. And I could do the same idea to the actual melody bus. So let's send the same thing there. Another send. Let's listen to that a little bit. Okay. Something I want to watch is always watch your master bus down here. So as you can see, up here or here, I'm a little bit hot right now. Yeah, that's too hot. So what I'll probably do is bring down my auxiliaries down to maybe -4. I'll bring this one down to -4. Same idea. At the very end on the master bus, I do a little bit of mastering to prepare it for the actual engineer, and I could send the client a bounced out MP3. So on the master bus, I like to have, first of all, probably a little bit of an EQ. So let's just find any EQ here. Maybe just a Q2, something not too crazy. And I just like to raise the top end with a little bit of a shelf. So not much, maybe like 1 dB, around 5,000. Just add a little bit. After that, I'm going to use an SSL G compressor here. So this is kind of adding a bit of glue to the mix. This is like a bus compressor. Once again, it's around -2 dB, not too much. I like to use, again, the Waves Vitamin. This thing is absolutely stellar. Giving you all my secrets. This is fantastic. So, mastering to mastering 1. That just adds, listen to this, off. Just adds a little brightness to the top. Another thing I like to use is on the master bus, the Oxford Inflator. This thing is wicked. I've been using it for years. I'm going to push play, and I set it to around 75%. It just kind of makes the mix just kind of explode a little bit. Perfect. And the last thing is the new Waves L4. This thing is killer. And I'll bring the ceiling down just a bit underneath. And I'm going to make the threshold happen till I get maybe like a tickle of attenuation here. That's pretty good. And they also have this new upward compression. I'm going to tickle this even more. And all of a sudden, I have a completed whole mastered session to give to the actual engineer. It's perfect. I had a lot of fun doing it. So basically, now I could just save it, export a whole mix, and that would be all saved in the actual Pro Tools file. And then I would just zip it and send it off to the engineer. So there you have it. That was me recording acoustic guitars, doing a left and a right and a melody guitar. I thought it needed some bass, so I put that in there. Even though there was bass from the original recording, but that was tracked using an electric kind of band and sound, so it needed to be not so distorted. Okay, so there you have it. There was my concept of how to track acoustic guitars. I did a left, I did a right, which was tons of fun. With DI and mic, I threw in bass, and I put a little tambourine on top. We created buses to kind of process each of the bus. We did a filter on it. We did like a C4 multi-band compression, and then we did more of an overall compression. We did that the same with the melody. We created a reverb bus, give it a bit of space. I processed the bass. And then on the master bus, we also did some processing on there as well. So anyway, Dave Martone here. This is my first one doing this in a long, long time for a video. I hope you enjoyed it. There should be more to come. Let me know if you want to see more, if you have any ideas of what you want me to talk about. Once again, this is kind of project recording concepts, what I'm dealing with. It could be electric or voice or whatever. So may the tone be with you. May the tone be with you. Later.